"Daddy, that beggar is my sister," shouted the millionaire's son, pointing to a dirty girl on the sidewalk. The millionaire looked and froze when he saw his dead wife's features on that little street girl. Within seconds, forgotten memories and an ancient pain swept over him like a gale. And there, in the midst of the urban chaos, began the biggest turning point of his life, the search for the daughter he never knew existed. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. Manhattan's streets pulsed with their usual morning rhythm as Alexander Bennett's armored car glided through traffic. The 52-story glass tower that housed Bennett Enterprises cast long shadows across Fifth Avenue, but Alexander's attention was elsewhere. His iPhone buzzed incessantly with messages from board members and international partners, each demanding immediate responses to their urgent concerns. In the back seat, 8-year-old Thomas Bennett watched the city with unusual intensity. His large brown eyes, so much like his mother's, absorbed every detail of the urban landscape passing by. While other children his age might have been engrossed in tablets or video games, Thomas seemed to study the world as if searching for something or someone. "The Hong Kong merger cannot wait another week," Alexander spoke firmly into his phone, his fingers drumming against his leather briefcase. "Make it happen by Friday, or we'll need to reconsider our strategy." He ended the call with a sharp tap, only to find another waiting. The car slowed to a stop at a red light, and that's when everything changed. Thomas pressed his small hand against the bulletproof window, his breath fogging the glass. "Dad," he called out, his voice trembling with an urgency that made Alexander's heart skip a beat. "Dad, look! That homeless girl, she's my sister!" Alexander's phone slipped from his fingers, clattering against the car's floor. He followed his son's gaze to the sidewalk, where a young girl sat huddled against a building's wall. Her clothes were torn and dirty, her dark hair matted and unkempt, but her features, those features struck him like a physical blow. She had Catherine's eyes, Catherine's nose, Catherine's delicate chin. It was like looking at a ghost, a mirror, image of his wife who had been gone for 7 years. The similarity was so striking that for a moment he couldn't breathe. The girl's eyes met his through the tinted window, and something electric passed between them. Recognition? Fear? Before Alexander could process what was happening, she scrambled to her feet and disappeared into the crowd. "Stop the car!" Alexander commanded, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Jenkins, stop the car now!" But by the time the driver managed to pull over, the girl had vanished completely. Alexander stepped out onto the sidewalk, his expensive Italian shoes scuffing against the concrete as he searched desperately through the sea of pedestrians. Nothing. She was gone. "Dad, we have to find her," Thomas pleaded, joining him on the sidewalk. "She looked just like the picture of Mom in your office. Please, Dad, we can't leave her out here." Alexander knelt before his son, studying the boy's face. Thomas had always been different, more perceptive, more sensitive than other children his age. He noticed things that others missed, felt things that others overlooked, and now this declaration about a sister. "Thomas," Alexander began carefully, "your mother and I, we only had you. You don't have a sister." But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept into his mind. Catherine's final days had been shrouded in mystery. Her sudden illness, the rushed hospital transfer, the closed casket funeral that his father had insisted upon, it all felt wrong now, viewed through the lens of this moment. "She's my sister," Thomas insisted, his young voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "I dream about her sometimes. Mom is there too, and she's singing to us both." Alexander's world tilted on its axis. The carefully constructed reality he'd lived in for the past 7 years began to crack. Those dreams Thomas mentioned, he'd dismissed them as a child's way of processing grief, of wanting the mother he'd lost too young. But what if they were something more? "Jenkins," he called to his driver, "take Thomas to school, then cancel all my appointments for the next week." "But sir, the board meeting—" "Cancel everything," Alexander cut him off, his mind already racing ahead. "Something more important has come up." He watched as Jenkins ushered a reluctant Thomas back into the car, the boy's eyes still searching the crowded street for his vanished sister. Alexander pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Marcus, it's Bennett. I need you to look into something for me. It's about Catherine's death, and I need everything. Hospital records, death certificates, staff interviews, everything." As he ended the call, Alexander looked up at the towering Bennett Enterprises building, the empire his father had built and that he had inherited. For the first time in his life, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the truth he could feel slipping through his fingers like sand. The girl's face haunted him. Those eyes, Catherine's eyes, held secrets he was now determined to uncover, no matter the cost. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a memory stirred. Catherine's last words to him before she was taken away. "Protect them both, Alex. Promise me." He hadn't understood then. But now, standing on that busy Manhattan street, Alexander Bennett finally began to comprehend the weight of a promise he'd failed to keep. The private investigator's office was a stark contrast to Alexander's pristine corporate world. Marcus Kelly's desk overflowed with files and coffee-stained papers, the overhead fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the cluttered space. But Marcus was the best at what he did, and right now, Alexander needed the best. "This doesn't add up, Alex," Marcus said, spreading documents across his desk. "The death certificate says Catherine died at St. Matthew's Hospital, but I've got city records showing that facility was closed for renovations 3 months before her supposed death. And the doctor who signed it? Dr. James Morrison? He doesn't exist, at least not in any medical registry I can access." Alexander's hands clenched into fists as he stared at the fraudulent death certificate. "Keep going. The timeline is wrong too. You told me Catherine was admitted for severe depression and anxiety. The hospital transfer papers show she was moved to a specialized facility, but there's no record of which one. The next document we have is the death certificate, dated 2 weeks later." But here's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulled out a thick folder. "I found records of a Jane Doe admitted to Evergreen Psychiatric Center on the same day Catherine was supposedly transferred. The admission was ordered by someone with enough influence to bypass standard protocols." Evergreen Psychiatric, Alexander's blood ran cold. The facility was known for its discretion and its exclusive clientele, and its connections to his father, Richard Bennett. "Show me everything you have on that admission." Marcus handed him a grainy security camera photo. The image showed a woman being helped from a car, her face partially obscured, but her profile achingly familiar. This was taken at Evergreen's rear entrance. The timestamp matches Catherine's transfer date. Alexander studied the photo, his heart pounding. "She was pregnant," he whispered, noting the subtle swell of her abdomen that the loose hospital gown couldn't quite hide. "What did you say?" Marcus leaned forward. "Catherine was pregnant when she disappeared. We hadn't told anyone yet. She wanted to wait until after the first trimester." Alexander's voice cracked. "My father, he never approved of our marriage, said Catherine wasn't Bennett material, called her unstable, said she'd destroy the family name." Marcus's expression darkened. "Alex, Evergreen isn't just a psychiatric facility. It's got a fully equipped medical ward, including," he hesitated, "including a maternity unit, under the table, off the books." The implications hit Alexander like a physical blow. If Catherine had been alive when she arrived at Evergreen, if she had been pregnant, the girl on the street, he breathed, Thomas's vision, it wasn't a coincidence. "There's more," Marcus said quietly. "I found a series of payments from a Bennett Family Shell Corporation to various children's homes and foster care facilities across the state. The payments started around 9 months after Catherine's admission to Evergreen." Alexander stood abruptly, pacing the small office. "My father, all this time he didn't just take Catherine from us, he couldn't finish the sentence. "I've got people looking into staff records from that period," Marcus continued. "Many of them have mysteriously relocated or taken early retirement with generous pensions, but one nurse agreed to talk to me. She's scared, but she remembers a patient matching Catherine's description. Says the woman was kept heavily sedated, but would sometimes sing lullabies in her lucid moments. Something about a ray of sunshine. Alexander froze. Sunshine, he repeated softly. Catherine used to call Thomas her little ray of sunshine. She'd sing. The nurse mentioned something else, Marcus interrupted gently. The baby, it was a girl, born healthy, taken away immediately. The only thing the mother managed to give her was a hair ribbon, had something embroidered on it. Alexander's phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from Thomas's school. His son had drawn another picture in art class. The teacher was concerned because it showed the same scene over and over. 2 children, a woman with long dark hair, and the words, "My ray of sunshine," floating above. Them like a prayer. Marcus, Alexander's voice was steel. I need everything you can find on Evergreen Psychiatric. Staff records, patient logs, security footage, everything. And I need you to trace those payments to the children's homes. Find out where they sent her. As he turned to leave, Marcus called after him. Alex, your father, he's still on the board at Evergreen. If we start digging, then he'll know I'm coming, Alexander finished. Good. It's time he learned that some things are more important than the Bennett name. The Manhattan sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink as Alexander drove home, his mind racing with possibilities. Somewhere out there, his daughter was surviving on the streets. Somewhere, Catherine might still be alive, trapped in a drug-induced prison. And in between it all was his father, the puppet master who had orchestrated this elaborate devastation. Thomas was waiting when he arrived home, clutching his latest drawing. Dad, he said solemnly, I drew her again. Do you believe me now? Alexander knelt before his son, touching the carefully drawn figures on the paper. Yes, Thomas, I believe you, and we're going to find them both, your sister and your mother. I promise. This time it was a promise he intended to keep. Sarah Chen stared at the stack of documents on her desk at the New York Times, her coffee growing cold beside her laptop. After 15 years as an investigative journalist, she thought she'd seen everything. But this was different. The manila envelope had arrived anonymously that morning, containing records that made her hands shake with a mixture of professional excitement and personal rage. Private psychiatric facilities, operating without oversight, she muttered, scanning through the papers. Falsified death certificates, illegal detentions, forced sedation. Her fingers traced the names of prominent families involved, stopping at one that made her breath catch: Bennett. Sarah had her own reasons for investigating psychiatric facilities. 10 years ago, her sister had disappeared into one, supposedly voluntarily. The official story was that Marie had checked herself in for depression treatment. 3 months later, she'd supposedly checked herself out. No one had seen her since. The journalist pulled up her database of similar cases. Over the past decade, she'd collected dozens of stories: wealthy families, inconvenient relatives, mysterious illnesses, and convenient disappearances. But she'd never had proof, never had the documentation to connect the dots. Until now. Her phone buzzed, a text from her contact inside Evergreen Psychiatric Center. Need to meet. Not safe to talk here. Usual place, 1 hour. The cafe was busy enough to provide cover, but quiet enough for conversation. Nancy, a nurse who'd worked at Evergreen for 20 years, sat in their usual corner booth, her hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea to stop their trembling. They're destroying records, Nancy whispered, glancing nervously around. Ever since Alexander Bennett started asking questions about his wife's case, but they missed something. A logbook I kept, personal notes about the patients they wanted us to forget. Sarah leaned forward. Tell me about Catherine Bennett. She wasn't like the others. Most patients there, they're truly ill or too drugged to fight back, but Catherine, she was different. Even heavily sedated, she was aware. She would memorize the nurses' faces, the doctors' names. She kept track of time by counting meal deliveries. Nancy's voice cracked. When her baby was born, she fought so hard they had to restrain her. She just wanted to hold her daughter. Just once. The baby, what happened to her? Richard Bennett arranged everything. The girl was taken to St. Agnes Children's Home, but she ran away 6 months later. She was just 5 years old. Nancy pulled out a worn notebook from her purse. I kept track of her when I could. The social workers called her Luna because she was brought in on a full moon night. But Catherine, she had another name for her. Ray of Sunshine, Sarah finished, remembering the documents on her desk. Nancy nodded. Catherine would sing that over and over, even through the sedation. My ray of sunshine, my ray of sunshine. When they increased her medication to stop, the singing, she found other ways. She traced the words on her sheets, scratched them into the walls when no one was looking. Sarah's recorder captured every word, but her mind was already racing ahead. Nancy, is Catherine Bennett still alive? The nurse's eyes darted to the cafe window. They moved her last week after. Alexander started investigating. I don't know where, but she slid a piece of paper across the table. This is the transport company they used, and Sarah, Richard Bennett, personally supervised the move. Back in her office, Sarah began connecting. Threads on her investigation board, photos, documents, and sticky notes created a web of corruption and power. At the center was Richard Bennett, patriarch, philanthropist, and puppet master of a decades-long conspiracy. Her phone rang, an unlisted number. Ms. Chen, this is Alexander Bennett. I believe we need to talk. Sarah's pulse quickened. Mr. Bennett, I was about to contact you myself. I know about your investigation, and your sister. His voice was tight with controlled emotion. I can help you find her if you help me expose what's happening at Evergreen. But we need to move, fast. My father's already started cleaning house. Why should I trust you? Sarah challenged. Your family's at the heart of this. Because like you, I know what it's like to have someone stolen from you. And because my 8-year-old son sees things in his dreams that he couldn't possibly knows, unless they're true. Sarah thought of her own investigation board, of Nancy's trembling hands, of all the families torn apart by power and greed. Tomorrow morning, my office, bring everything you have. As she hung up, a new email arrived. Security footage from Evergreen's loading dock dated 1 week ago. The video showed a medical transport van leaving at 3 a.m., followed by a luxury SUV with tinted windows. Sarah froze the frame on the SUV's license plate and smiled grimly. Richard Bennett wasn't as careful as he thought. The web of lies was beginning to unravel, and Sarah Chen was going to pull every single thread until it came apart completely. Luna huddled deeper into her worn jacket as the autumn wind whipped through the alley. 8 years on the streets had taught her every safe corner, every warm vent, every kind shop owner who might offer a stale bagel or a moment of shelter. But lately something felt different. She was being watched. It had started with the man in the expensive car, the one whose eyes had locked with hers through the tinted window. Something about him had felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream, and the boy in the back seat. She'd seen his face before in the fragments of memory that visited her at night. You need to eat something, dear. Maria, the owner of a small Venezuelan restaurant, pressed a warm container into Luna's hands. You're looking too thin. Luna managed a smile. Maria was one of the few people she trusted, one of the few who asked no questions about her past. Thanks, Maria. I'll try to pay you back someday. Nonsense, just promise me you'll consider talking to that social worker who came by yesterday. Carmen's good people. She really wants to help. Luna's grip tightened on the container. The social worker, Carmen Rodriguez, had been different from the others. She hadn't tried to force Luna into a shelter or threatened to call the authorities. Instead, she'd just sat nearby, sharing her own lunch and talking softly about nothing in particular. She left her card, Maria added gently, sliding it across the counter. Luna pocketed the card without looking at it. She had a system. Trust no one. Accept help cautiously. Never stay in one place too long. It had kept her alive this long. But the dreams were getting stronger. A woman's voice singing softly, the scent of lavender, a ribbon with embroidered, words she could almost read. And now that man in the car. She made her way to her current sleeping spot, a forgotten maintenance room in an abandoned subway station. Luna had discovered it months ago, picking the lock with skills learned from necessity. Inside, she'd created a semblance of home, a relatively clean mattress, a battery-powered lamp, some books rescued from recycling bins. Pulling out her most prized possession, Luna ran her fingers over the faded ribbon. The embroidery was barely legible now. My ray of... The last word had been lost to time and where, but in her dreams she knew it was sunshine. The sound of footsteps echoing through the tunnel made her freeze. No one else knew about this place. She quickly gathered her essentials into her backpack, ready to run. Hello? A woman's voice. Carmen, the social worker. I followed you to make sure you were safe. I'm not coming closer. I just want to talk. Luna's heart raced. No one had ever found her here. How did you find me? I'm good at my job, Carmen replied simply. And I know what it's like to hide. I was like you once, a long time ago. Something in her voice made Luna pause. What do you want? To show you something, a photograph. Then I'll leave, and you can decide what to do next. Luna hesitated, then moved closer to the tunnel entrance, staying in the shadows. Carmen slowly withdrew a photo from her jacket and held it up to the dim light. It was a hospital photo, dated 15 years ago. A woman in a hospital bed, heavily sedated but beautiful, with Luna's eyes and face, and in her arms, barely visible before being taken away, was a newborn baby with a familiar ribbon in her tiny hand. Her name is Catherine Bennett, Carmen said softly, and she's been asking for her ray of sunshine every day for 15 years. Luna's legs gave out, and she slid down the wall to sit on the cold concrete. The dreams, the memories, the man in the car, it all started to align like stars forming a constellation. There's a man looking for you, Carmen continued, and a little boy who somehow knew you were his sister. But more importantly, there's a woman who never forgot you, never stopped fighting to remember you. The question is, are you ready to remember her too? Luna's fingers found the ribbon in her pocket, tracing the familiar embroidery. In her mind, the woman's voice sang clearer than ever. My ray of sunshine, my ray of sunshine. If I come with you, Luna whispered, will you tell me everything? Carmen's smile was gentle but determined. No, I'll do something better. I'll help you find the truth yourself. But Luna, we need to move fast. There are people who don't want this family reunion to happen. For the first time in years, Luna felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. The private medical facility in upstate New York stood like a fortress among manicured gardens, its modern architecture a stark contrast to the antiquated practices within. In a room on the third floor, Catherine Bennett sat in a chair by the window, her dark hair now streaked with silver, her once vibrant eyes focused on the distance. The new medication was lighter. They'd had to reduce the dosage during the transfer, and for the first time in years her mind felt clearer. She'd learned long ago that clarity was dangerous, that showing too much awareness would result in increased sedation, so she maintained her vacant expression even as her mind raced. They'd moved her 3 times in the past week. She'd counted the turns, estimated the travel times, memorized the sound of helicopter blades. This facility was different, newer, with more security but fewer patients. Something had changed. Something had frightened them. Mrs. Bennett. A young nurse entered with a breakfast tray. New staff, Catherine noted. They were all new here. Time for your morning medication. Catherine's fingers brushed against the small piece of paper she'd managed to hide in the seam of her chair. A newspaper clipping smuggled in by one of the older nurses at Evergreen before the transfer. The headline was barely visible, but she'd memorized every word. Bennett Enterprises CEO launches internal investigation. Alex was looking for her. After all these years, he'd finally started to uncover the truth. She took the paper cup of pills, maintaining the docile expression she'd perfected over 15 years of captivity. The nurse watched her swallow them, checked her mouth as usual, then left with a sympathetic smile. What the nurse didn't know was that Catherine had learned to create a small pocket under her tongue, a technique perfected through years of desperate determination. Once alone, she moved to the bathroom, disposing of the medication she'd pretended to swallow. Her mind needed to stay sharp now. Alex was coming, and she had to be ready. But it wasn't just Alex she thought about during her long hours of enforced silence. It was Thomas, her beautiful boy, who'd been barely a toddler when they took her away. And the baby, her daughter, torn from her arms moments after birth. She'd only glimpsed her once, but that moment was seared into her memory, tiny fingers clutching the embroidered ribbon Catherine had managed to hide in her hospital gown. "My ray of sunshine," she whispered to the empty room, the lullaby she'd sung through years of sedation echoing in her mind. The sound of voices in the hallway made her return quickly to her chair. Through lowered lashes, she watched as Richard Bennett, her father-in-law, her jailer, strode past her door, speaking in harsh whispers to the facility's director. "The journalist is becoming a problem," Richard's voice carried through the thin walls. "And Alexander's getting too close. We need to move her again. With all due respect, Mr. Bennett, frequent transfers increase the risk of exposure. The staff at Evergreen are already talking." "Then silence them. I didn't spend 15 years protecting the family name to have it destroyed now." Catherine's fingers dug into the arms of her chair, but her face remained impassive. Richard had always been obsessed with the Bennett legacy. Her pregnancy had been the final straw. Another heir, one he couldn't control, one who might inherit her mother's instability. But Richard had miscalculated. He'd assumed the medications would eventually break her, that years of isolation would erase her memories. Instead, they'd only sharpened her resolve. Every day she'd forced herself to remember Alex's laugh, Thomas's first steps, the weight of her newborn daughter in her arms. She'd counted days by meals, mapped the facility by counting footsteps, memorized staff rotations and security patterns, and she'd listened. Through the haze of sedation, she'd gathered fragments of information. The night nurse who mentioned a homeless girl with familiar eyes. The janitor who spoke of Alexander Bennett asking questions at shelters. The security guard who complained about a persistent journalist. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. A different nurse entered, older, with kind eyes that held a hint of purpose. "Time for your walk in the garden, Mrs. Bennett." Catherine recognized the slight accent, the careful way the nurse held herself. This was no ordinary staff member. As they walked through the corridors, the nurse spoke in a whisper, her words measured and precise. "My name is Carmen Rodriguez. I'm a social worker. I found your daughter." Catherine's step faltered, but years of practice kept her expression neutral. The nurse, Carmen, steadied her with a gentle hand. "She has your eyes," Carmen continued softly. "And she still has the ribbon." Tears threatened to fall, but Catherine forced them back, showing emotion now could ruin everything. Instead, she squeezed Carmen's hand once, a signal she understood. "Your husband and Ms. Chen from the Times are building a case," Carmen murmured as they reached the garden. "But Richard Bennett knows. He's planning to move you again, somewhere even Alexander won't find you." Catherine's mind raced. After 15 years of waiting, everything was happening at once. Her daughter was alive, Alex was searching, and now, finally, she had an ally on the inside. As they turned back toward the building, Catherine made her decision. She'd spent 15 years playing the docile patient, waiting for a chance. She wouldn't wait any longer. Her children needed her. "When?" she whispered, her voice rusty from disuse. Carmen's response was equally quiet. 3 days. Be ready." For the first time in 15 years, Catherine Bennett felt the corners of her mouth turn up in a real smile. Richard had wanted to break her, to erase her. Instead, he'd created his own worst nightmare, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Alexander Bennett's office at the New York Times building was a far cry from his usual corporate suite. Sarah Chen had cleared a space among her investigation boards and files, creating a makeshift command center for their joint mission. Thomas sat nearby, drawing in his sketchbook while the adults worked. "The transport company was a dead end," Sarah announced, pinning another document to the board. "Shell Corporation, like everything else connected to your father." Alexander rubbed his temples, fighting exhaustion. "But we confirmed Catherine's location." "Until yesterday." Sarah's expression was grim. My source says they're planning another move, soon. Thomas looked up from his drawing. She's in a white building with blue windows. There are lots of flowers outside and mountains in the background. Both adults turned to stare at the boy. Sarah spoke first. Thomas, how do you know that? I see it when I sleep. He held up his sketchbook. The drawing showed exactly what he'd described. A modern medical facility nestled against a mountain backdrop. Mom is there. She's awake now, more than before. And she's waiting. Alexander crossed the room to examine his son's drawing. After years of dismissing Thomas's dreams as imagination, he'd learned to listen. Sarah, any facilities matching this description in your files? The journalist was already typing. Give me a minute, got it. The Riverside Wellness Center opened 6 months ago in the Adirondacks, owned by a subsidiary of... Interesting. Not your father's company. This one traces back to the Whitman family. Julian Whitman? Alexander's voice sharpened. My father's oldest friend? And Evergreen Psychiatrics' primary stockholder. Sarah pulled up more documents. The connection's been there all along. We just weren't looking for it. Alexander's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Kelly. Got the nurse's logbook. Records of every patient transfer from Evergreen, including where they went. Meeting in 20. Before he could respond, Sarah's computer chimed with an incoming email. Her expression changed as she read it. Alexander, it's from Carmen Rodriguez. She's made contact with Catherine. The room seemed to freeze. Even Thomas stopped drawing, his young face intense with concentration. She's lucid, Sarah continued reading. They've reduced her medication during the transfers. And Alexander, she remembers everything. Every day, every person, every detail of what they did to her. Alexander gripped the edge of Sarah's desk, his knuckles white. The girl? Our daughter? Carmen. Found her. She's safe, but we have to move fast. Your father's already suspicious of Carmen's credentials. If he digs too deep, he'll find out she's working with us. Alexander straightened. Decision made. How soon can you have the story? Ready? Sarah gestured to her investigation board. The basic framework is done. I just need to verify the Whitman connection and... She paused as another email arrived. It's from Nancy at Evergreen. She's sending security footage from the night Catherine gave birth and copies of the real medical records. Dad? Thomas's voice was quiet but urgent. Someone's here to see you. They turned to find Luna standing in the doorway, Carmen Rodriguez beside her. The girl's resemblance to Catherine was even more striking in the office's bright light. She clutched her worn backpack with one hand, the faded ribbon visible between her fingers. I remember the song, Luna said softly, her eyes fixed on Thomas's drawing. She used to sing it every night, even when they tried to make her stop. Thomas walked over to his sister, taking her hand as if they'd never been apart. I know, I heard it too. Alexander watched his children, the son who'd never stopped believing and the daughter he'd failed to protect, and felt something shift inside him. The corporate warrior, the dutiful son, the cautious businessman, those versions of himself fell away. What remained was simply a father, ready to tear down heaven and earth to make his family whole again. Sarah, he turned to the journalist, how quickly can you get a camera crew to the Riverside Center? Within the hour. I have a contact at Channel 7 who's been following this story. Carmen? The social worker nodded. Catherine will be ready, but Richard Bennett has a private helicopter on standby. If he suspects anything. He already does. Marcus Kelly strode into the office waving a file. Just intercepted this. Transfer orders signed this morning. They're moving her tonight. Alexander looked at the assembled group, the determined journalist, the undercover social worker, the private investigator, and his two remarkable children. Years of power plays and corporate negotiations had taught him to recognize defining moments. This was one. Then we move now, he declared. Sarah, call your camera crew. Marcus, get me everything you have on Riverside security protocols. Carmen, can you get back in? My shift starts in 3 hours. Good. Alexander knelt before his children. Thomas, Luna, so you ready to help us bring your mother home? Their matching expressions of fierce determination were all the answer he needed. The Bennett family was about to be reunited, and Richard Bennett was about to learn that some things were more powerful than money, influence, or carefully guarded reputations. The truth was finally coming to light. Richard Bennett stood at the window of his penthouse office, watching storm clouds gather over Manhattan. The empire he'd built over 5 decades sprawled before him, towers of glass and steel bearing the Bennett name, each one a testament to his vision of legacy and power. But now, that legacy was threatening to crumble. His phone buzzed with an urgent message from Julian Whitman. Channel 7 news van spotted heading toward Riverside. Alexander's making his move. Richard's jaw clenched. He'd underestimated his son's determination, had dismissed Thomas's strange perceptions as childhood fantasy. But most of all, he'd underestimated Catherine's resilience. 15 years of chemical restraints hadn't broken her spirit. They'd only made her more dangerous. "Mr. Bennett?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The board. Members are assembled in the conference room. Tell them I'll be there shortly." He straightened his tie, checking his reflection in the window. The face that looked back at him was that of a man who'd sacrificed everything for control. The conference room fell silent as he entered. These were men and women who'd helped build his empire, who'd looked the other way when necessary, who'd understood that sometimes difficult decisions had to be made for the greater good. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him, "we face a crisis. My son, influenced by emotional manipulation and false memories, is about to make public accusations that could destroy everything we've built." "The Catherine situation," Julian Whitman spoke from his seat at the table. "I thought that was handled." It was, until Alexander started listening to his son's imaginings. Richard's lip curled slightly. "Now he's allied himself with a journalist from the Times. They have documentation, some real, some fabricated, suggesting impropriety in our medical facilities." "What exactly do they have?" a board member asked. "Records of patient transfers, financial transactions, security footage." Richard waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing that can't be explained. But in today's climate, mere accusations can be devastating. We need to act decisively." He pressed a button, and the room screens lit up with prepared statements and legal documents. "Each of you has a role to play. When the story breaks, we'll present a united front. Catherine Bennett was a troubled woman who received the best care money could buy. Any suggestion otherwise is a sad manipulation by those seeking to profit from family tragedy." "And Alexander?" another board member asked. "He's still CEO. Not for long." Richard distributed another set of documents. "These papers, signed by our medical experts, declare him emotionally compromised and temporarily unfit for leadership. The board will need to vote on interim management." Murmur of discomfort rippled through the room. These were powerful people, used to making hard decisions, but this was different. This was family. "I understand your hesitation," Richard continued smoothly, "but consider the alternatives. If Alexander's accusations go unchallenged, every decision this company has made will be scrutinized. Every medical facility we've partnered with, every private treatment center, every discreet arrangement for troubled relatives of influential families, all of it exposed." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. Many of them had their own secrets, their own carefully managed family situations. "The helicopter is standing by at Riverside," Julian added. "Catherine will be moved to a secure location within the hour. Once she's stabilized, we can address Alexander's concerns." Richard nodded, satisfied with the room's shifting mood. But before he could continue, his phone buzzed again. The message made his blood run cold. "Catherine's gone. Rodriguez was working with them, news crew already on site." For the first time in decades, Richard Bennett felt control slipping through his fingers. But he wasn't finished yet. He still had one card to play, one that would force Alexander to stand down. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we need to move faster than anticipated. Julian, initiate Protocol Winter immediately. The rest of you, prepare your statements. When this story breaks, we need to be ready. As the board members filed out, Richard remained at the head of the table, staring at the empire he'd built. He'd sacrificed his own humanity piece by piece to create this legacy. He'd locked away his daughter-in-law, separated his granddaughter from her family, and was about to destroy his own son. But empires weren't built on kindness. They were built on power, control, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to maintain both. The storm clouds outside had reached the Bennett building, thunder rumbling through the steel framework. Richard Bennett smiled grimly. Let Alexander come with his journalists and his evidence. Let him try to expose the truth. Some storms could be weathered, some truths could be buried, and some rebellions needed to be crushed before they could take root. He picked up his phone to make one final call. Get me the governor's office. It's time to call in some favors. The Riverside Wellness Center's pristine corridors echoed with the sound of Carmen Rodriguez's footsteps as she made her evening rounds. Her uniform was perfect, her documentation immaculate. No one questioned her presence or her authority as she moved through the secure ward. Catherine Bennett was ready. 15 years of captivity had taught her patience, had honed her every sense. She heard Carmen's approach and understood that this moment, this one chance, would determine everything. Evening medication, Mrs. Bennett, Carmen announced loudly for the benefit of the security cameras, but her hands were already moving, swift and sure, producing a set of clothes from beneath the medication tray. They've initiated Protocol Winter, she whispered as she helped Catherine change. Richard Bennett's final failsafe. We have maybe 20 minutes before the facility goes into complete lockdown. Catherine's fingers, stiff from years of disuse, fumbled with the buttons of the nurse's uniform. Thomas and Luna? Safe with Alexander and Sarah. They're waiting with the news crew at the north entrance. Carmen's voice remained professional and calm, even as she helped Catherine with her disguise. Can you walk? I've been practicing. Catherine's voice was stronger now, her movements more certain. Every day of reduced medication had brought back more of her strength, more of her determination. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. Carmen had spent weeks memorizing the security patterns, the staff rotations, the blind spots in the camera coverage. But Protocol Winter would change everything. New security measures, additional guards, complete communication blackout. They reached the staff elevator just as the first alarm sounded, subtle but unmistakable to those who knew what to listen for. The regular staff continued their routines, unaware of the silent crisis unfolding around them. Mrs. Whitman is asking for her evening tea, Carmen announced loudly as they passed the nurse's station. The staff barely glanced up, accustomed to the routines of their wealthy, demanding patients. But Catherine's heart nearly stopped when she saw the figure striding through the main entrance. Julian Whitman himself, his face twisted with barely contained rage as he spoke urgently into his phone. Richard, they're already here. Channel 7's van is at the north gate, and Alexander's lawyer just served us with papers. We need to wait. He looked up, his eyes narrowing as they passed. Something's wrong. Carmen's grip on Catherine's arm tightened slightly, but they maintained their steady pace toward the service exit. Behind them, Julian's voice rose. Stop them! That's not a real nurse! The next moments exploded into chaos. Security alarms blared in earnest now. Heavy doors began sliding shut throughout the facility. But Carmen and Catherine were already running, years of planning and preparation driving them forward. They burst through the service entrance into the rain-soaked evening. Lightning illuminated the scene. News vans with satellite dishes, police, cars with flashing lights, and Alexander Bennett standing with two children beside a black SUV. Mom! Luna's voice cut through the storm, through 15 years of separation. Through every barrier Richard Bennett had tried to build between them. Catherine's legs nearly gave out at the sight of her daughter, no longer the newborn torn from her arms, but a beautiful young woman with her eyes and her spirit. And Thomas, so grown, so brave, holding his sister's hand like he'd never let go. But there was no time for reunions. Security teams were emerging from the building, and Julian, Whitman's voice was growing closer, shouting orders into his phone. Get in. Sarah Chen called from the news van. We're live in 3 minutes. Alexander reached them first, supporting Catherine as her strength wavered. She looked up into his face, lined now with years of worry and determination, and saw the same, love that had sustained her through 15 years of darkness. I never stopped looking, he whispered. I never stopped fighting, she replied. They reached the van just as the helicopter appeared over the mountain ridge, Richard Bennett's final attempt to maintain control. But it was too late. Sarah Chen's camera was already rolling, capturing every moment of the escape, every proof of the conspiracy. As they pulled away from Riverside, Catherine held her children close, feeling their warmth, their reality. The storm raged outside, but inside the van a different kind of storm was breaking, one of truth, of justice, of a family finally reunited. It's over, Alexander said softly, watching the facility disappear in the rain. Your father can't hide this anymore. But Catherine, who had learned to read every nuance of danger during her captivity, knew better. No, she said, her voice quiet but certain. This is just the beginning. Richard Bennett won't let go of his empire without a fight. She looked at her family, her brave, determined family who had never stopped believing, never stopped searching. They had won this battle, but the war for truth was far from over. The storm clouds parted briefly, revealing a sky painted in shades of gold and purple. Somewhere in that sky, a ray of sunshine broke through, a promise of hope, of healing, of battles yet to come. The Bennett Towers executive boardroom hummed with tension as Richard Bennett faced the hastily assembled crisis management team. Outside, rain lashed against floor-to-ceiling windows, while inside dozens of screens displayed breaking news coverage of Catherine's escape. Channel 7 has been broadcasting live for the past hour, his media director reported, her voice tight with stress. The footage of Mrs. Bennett's rescue has already gone viral. Social media is exploding with hashtags: Bennett scandal, justice for Catherine, corporate corruption. Richard remained unnaturally calm, his fingers steepled before him. And our response? We've released the prepared statement about Catherine's mental health history, but it's not gaining traction. The public is more interested in the nurse's logbook and the falsified death certificate. There's also significant attention on Luna's story. The homeless daughter of a billionaire family resonates strongly with enough. Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. Get me Governor Phillips. The room fell silent as Richard's call was connected. James? Yes, it's time. Execute the warrant. Across town, in the small studio apartment Sarah Chen used as a safe house, Catherine sat surrounded by her family while the journalist prepared for her live broadcast. The reunion was everything she'd dreamed of during her long imprisonment. Thomas's gentle hand in hers, Luna's head resting against her shoulder, Alexander's protective presence behind them. Mom. Luna's voice was soft, still testing the word that had been denied her for so long. What was I like as a baby? Catherine's hand trembled as she stroked her daughter's hair. Perfect. You were perfect. You had these bright, curious eyes that seemed to take in everything. And when they took you away, her voice broke. I used to dream about you, Thomas said. Both of you. I'd hear Mom singing and Luna was always there too, even though I'd never met her. The Bennett gift, Catherine murmured. Your grandmother had it too, the ability to see what others couldn't. That's why Richard feared her, why he was so determined to control the family line. Alexander tensed at the mention of his father. Sarah's broadcast goes live in 10 minutes, once the full story breaks. A sharp knock at the door cut him off. Carmen, who had been watching through the window, suddenly straightened. Police. At least 6 cars. Alexander Bennett, a commanding voice called through the door. This is Detective Morgan with the NYPD. We have a warrant for Catherine Bennett's detention and emergency psychiatric evaluation. Sarah's face went pale. They can't. We have evidence. My father's influence runs deep, Alexander said grimly, especially with the current governor. Catherine stood slowly, years of institutional conditioning warring with her newfound freedom. No, I won't go back. Mum, Luna grabbed her hand, panic flashing in her eyes. The pounding on the door grew louder. "Mr. Bennett, we're authorized to use force if necessary." Alexander's mind raced, years of corporate strategy merging with desperate need to protect his family. "Sarah, is your broadcast setup ready?" The journalist nodded. "Everything's in place. We go live in 8 minutes." "Can you stream from a moving vehicle?" Sarah's eyes lit up with understanding. "The van has satellite capability, but we'll need a distraction to get past the police." "I can help with that." Marcus Kelly's voice crackled through Sarah's laptop. The private investigator had been monitoring the situation from his own surveillance position. "There's a service entrance through the basement. Maintenance tunnel connects to the next building. I've got a car waiting on the other side." Catherine looked at her children, then at Alexander. Years of helplessness fell away as determination took its place. "We run. Together." The pounding at the door became a systematic attempt to break it down. Carmen moved swiftly, gathering essential documents and equipment while Sarah packed her broadcasting gear. "Thomas, Luna," Alexander's voice was steady despite the chaos. "Stay close to your mother. Carmen, you lead. You know the tunnel system. Sarah, you're with me. We need that broadcast to go live the moment we're clear." 3 minutes until they breached the door, Marcus reported through the laptop. Catherine squared her shoulders, gathering strength she didn't know she had. For 15 years, she'd been a prisoner, a victim, a ghost in her own life. But now, surrounded by her children, supported by allies who risked everything to help her, she felt something new emerging, something fierce and unbreakable. "Richard Bennett thinks he can still control us through fear and force," she said, her voice carrying over the sound of splintering wood. "He's about to learn that some things are beyond his control." The door shuddered on its hinges as Sarah quickly initiated her broadcast sequence. In less than 10 minutes, the truth would be unstoppable, streaming live to millions of viewers, backed by irrefutable evidence and testimony. Thunder crashed outside as the Bennett family prepared to run once more. But this time was different. This time they were together. This time they were ready to fight back. And somewhere in the storm-dark city, Richard Bennett was about to discover that the empire he'd built on secrets and control was no match for the power of a family united by love and truth. Sarah Chen's hands were steady as she adjusted her camera settings in the back of the moving news van. Years of investigative journalism had prepared her for high-pressure situations, but this was different. This was personal. "We're live in 60 seconds, she announced, her voice carrying over the sound of Marcus's expert driving through rain-slicked streets. "Mrs. Bennett, are you ready?" Catherine sat straight-backed beside her children, her face composed despite their harrowing escape through the maintenance tunnels. Years of institutional control had taught her to hide her emotions, but now that mask would serve a different purpose. "I've been ready for 15 years, she replied softly. Alexander watched the streets through the van's tinted windows, his phone buzzing constantly with messages from the corporate world he'd left behind. Board members were choosing sides, stock prices were fluctuating wildly. The Bennett empire was trembling on its foundation. Going live in 5, 4, 3, the red light blinked on, and Sarah's professional voice filled the van. "Good evening, I'm Sarah Chen with Channel 7 News, bringing you a breaking story of corporate corruption, medical abuse, and a family's fight for justice. With me tonight is Catherine Bennett, legally declared deceased 7 years ago, yet very much alive and now free from forced imprisonment in private psychiatric facilities controlled by Bennett Enterprises." Catherine faced the camera with quiet dignity. "My name is Catherine Bennett. For 15 years I was held against my will, drugged and isolated, on the orders of my father-in-law, Richard Bennett. My crime? Carrying a child he feared would threaten his control over the family legacy." Behind the camera, Carmen monitored police frequencies on her tablet. "They're setting up roadblocks on major routes to Manhattan," she reported quietly. "But they don't know about Marcus's back routes." The satellite feed showed viewer numbers climbing exponentially as Catherine continued her story. Social media exploded with reactions, shares, and demands for justice. In corporate offices across the city, Employees of Bennett Enterprises watched in stunned silence as their company's darkest secrets were exposed. "The evidence is irrefutable," Sarah narrated, displaying documents on a split screen. Falsified death certificates, illegal medical procedures, suspicious financial transactions spanning decades. But perhaps most shocking is the human cost. Luna Bennett, born in captivity and separated from her family, forced to survive on the streets of New York, while her grandfather presided over a multi-billion-dollar empire. Luna squeezed her mother's hand as the camera turned to her. "I always knew I belonged somewhere," she said, her voice strong despite her years of hardship. "I had dreams, memories that didn't make sense until now. A song about sunshine, a mother's voice, a brother I'd never met but somehow knew." Thomas spoke next, his young voice carrying the weight of truth. "I saw them in my dreams too. Dad thought they were just nightmares, but they were real. They were always real." The van swerved suddenly as Marcus avoided a police checkpoint. "Alternative route engaged," he called back. "Stay focused on the broadcast." Sarah kept the camera steady as she addressed her audience. "We're coming to you live while still evading attempts by local law enforcement, acting on questionable orders to return Mrs. Bennett to custody. But the truth cannot be contained any longer." Alexander's phone buzzed again, a message from the board of directors. His eyes widened as he read it. "They're calling an emergency session. Shareholders are demanding my father's immediate removal." Richard Bennett's response to these allegations has been to attempt to have his own daughter-in-law forcibly committed again, Sarah continued, her voice carrying controlled outrage. "But this time, the world is watching." Catherine leaned forward, her face filling the frame. "To every family who has lost someone to these private facilities, to every person silenced by money and power, your truth matters. Your story matters. And we will not stop until every hidden document is revealed, every secret facility is exposed, and every person responsible is held accountable." The viewer count passed 1 million as Catherine spoke directly to her father-in-law. "You tried to break me, Richard. You tried to erase me. But you forgot something important. Love leaves traces that no amount of money can erase, no amount of drugs can blur, and no amount of power can control." Suddenly, Marcus's voice cut through the broadcast. "Incoming! Richard Bennett's private. Security detail 3 vehicles." But it was too late for Richard Bennett's interventions. The truth was already out, streaming live to millions of viewers, shared across every social media platform, picked up by international news outlets. The camera captured every attempt to stop them, every abuse of power, every desperate grasp at control. The Bennett empire had been built on secrets and silence, but now in the back of a news van racing through stormy Manhattan streets, those secrets were crumbling in the face of something far more powerful, the raw, uncontainable force of truth finally set free. Richard Bennett watched his world unravel on a dozen screens in his executive office. The stock price of Bennett Enterprises plummeted as Catherine's broadcast reached international networks. His phone buzzed incessantly with calls from board members, shareholders, and journalists, but he ignored them all. "Sir," his assistant's voice trembled through the intercom, "the FBI is in the lobby. They have a warrant." Richard's lip curled slightly as he switched off the intercom. He'd prepared for this possibility, even if he'd never truly believed it would come. His private elevator would take him to the helipad, where his pilot waited. A few hours to his private island. Then a network of offshore accounts and carefully maintained foreign identities would ensure his comfort. But as he reached for his briefcase, the elevator dinged unexpectedly. The doors opened to reveal Julian Whitman, his oldest friend and co-conspirator, looking decidedly unpredictable. "It's over, Richard," Julian said quietly, stepping into the office. "The board has voted. Your control of the company is suspended. Pending investigation." Richard's laugh was hollow. "The board? I built this company. I own the board." "Not anymore." Julian placed a tablet on Richard's desk, displaying a live feed of the emergency board meeting. "They're voting to cooperate fully with federal investigators. Everyone's turning, Richard. The hospital administrators, the doctors, the financial." Officers, they're all making deals. Cowards, Richard spat. After everything I've done for them. You imprisoned your daughter-in-law for 15 years. Julian's voice rose. You separated a mother from her newborn child. You falsified medical records, bribed officials, destroyed families. All for what? Control. For legacy. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. Everything I did was to protect the Bennett name, to ensure our position. Catherine was weak, emotional, unpredictable. Her children would have inherited her instability. Her children? Julian laughed bitterly. Have you seen them, Richard? Really seen them? Thomas, with his extraordinary perception. Luna, who survived years on the streets with her mother's strength and resilience. They're not unstable, they're extraordinary, and you were too blind to see it. The sound of footsteps in the corridor grew louder. Richard moved toward his private exit, but Julian blocked his path. Get out of my way. No. Julian stood firm. I've spent decades helping you destroy lives, telling myself it was necessary, that we were protecting something important. I watched you tear your own family apart and I said nothing. Not anymore. Richard's hand moved toward his desk drawer, but Julian was faster. Looking for this? He held up a small key. I removed your gun an hour ago. Did you really think I'd let you take the easy way out? The office doors burst open as FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Behind them came Alexander, his face set in grim determination. Richard Bennett, the lead agent, announced, "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, false imprisonment, and numerous other charges we'll be detailing at length." As the agents moved to handcuff him, Richard looked at his son. "Everything I did was for you, for our family name." "No," Alexander's voice was quiet but firm. "Everything you did was for control. But you forgot something, Father. The Bennett name doesn't belong to you alone, and we're going to rebuild it into something better." "Sir," an agent interrupted, "you'll want to see this." He held up his phone, showing a live news feed. The camera panned across the Bennett Tower lobby, where Catherine stood with Thomas and Luna, surrounded by reporters. "After 15 years of silence," Catherine was saying, her voice strong and clear, "I'm announcing the formation of the Bennett Foundation for Family Justice. Every penny of my husband's inheritance will go to helping families torn apart by corporate greed and abuse of power. We will investigate every private facility, expose every corrupt practice, and reunite every family separated by money and influence." The lobby erupted in applause. The image showed Luna and Thomas beaming up at their mother, while Sarah Chen stood nearby, tears in her eyes, as she watched justice finally prevail. Richard sagged in the agent's grip as the last vestiges of his control slipped away. His empire wasn't just falling, it was being transformed into something he'd never imagined, never wanted, and could never control. As they led him out, Julian's words followed him. "You know what the irony is, Richard? If you'd just loved them, really loved them without conditions or control, you could have had the greatest legacy of all, a family that changed the world for the better." The elevator doors closed on Richard Bennett's empire, not with a bang, but with the quiet certainty of justice finally served. Above the city, the storm clouds began to part, letting through the first rays of morning sun, nature's own subtle reminder that after the darkest night, light always returns. 1 month. After Richard Bennett's arrest, the Bennett penthouse was filled with morning light and the smell of fresh coffee. Catherine stood at the kitchen counter, still marveling at the simple pleasure of making breakfast for her family. Every ordinary moment felt extraordinary after 15 years of loss. "Mom," Luna's voice carried from the living room. "They're talking about the foundation again." Catherine joined her children on the couch, where the morning news showed footage of the Bennett Foundation's first major initiative, a nationwide investigation into private psychiatric facilities and their connections to corporate interests. "In a groundbreaking development," the anchor reported, 3 more facilities have been closed following evidence of illegal detention practices. The Bennett Foundation, led by Catherine Bennett and supported by investigative journalist Sarah, Chen continues to uncover networks of corruption while providing support for affected families. Thomas leaned against his mother's shoulder. "Did you see the drawings from the kids we helped? They're like the ones I used to make, but now they're happy drawings." Catherine wrapped an arm around her son. His gift, once dismissed as imagination, had become an invaluable tool in helping other families recognize signs of their own lost connections. The Bennett sensitivity, as they now called it, was no longer something to fear or suppress, but a gift to be understood and cherished. "Ready for the big day?" Alexander asked, entering with a tray of breakfast pastries. The past month had transformed him too. He'd stepped down as CEO of Bennett Enterprises to focus on rebuilding something more important, his family. Luna nodded eagerly. "Carmen's picking us up in an hour. We're visiting 3 families today who think they've found their relatives in the facility records." The doorbell rang and Sarah Chen entered, carrying her ever-present laptop. "Morning, everyone. The Today Show interview is confirmed for next week. They want to focus on the Foundation's success in pushing for new legislation." "The Bennett Family Protection Act," Catherine mused, still amazed by how much had changed. The law, sparked by their story and supported by thousands of families, would create strict oversight of private medical facilities and protect patients' rights. "Julian Whitman called," Alexander added quietly. "He's continuing to cooperate with investigators. His testimony has helped identify dozens of other cases." Catherine nodded, grateful for the unexpected ally Julian had become. His decision to turn against Richard had marked a turning point, proving that even decades of complicity could be overcome by the choice to do what was right. "Have you visited him?" Luna asked softly. Everyone knew she meant Richard, now awaiting trial in federal custody. "No," Alexander replied. "He's refused all contact, still convinced he was right, even now." "Some people can't let go of control," Catherine said, gathering her children close. "But we can choose a different path." The penthouse filled with morning activity as they prepared for another day of foundation work. Carmen arrived, bringing updates from their legal team. Sarah set up for a video conference with international advocacy groups interested in their model. But before they dispersed to their various missions, the family gathered for a moment on the balcony. The city spread before them, no longer a place of shadows and secrets, but a landscape of possibility and hope. "I had a dream last night," Thomas announced. "But it wasn't like the old ones. It was just us together helping people, and everything was bright." Luna smiled, taking her brother's hand. "No more hidden sunshine." Catherine looked at her family. The son who never stopped believing, the daughter who survived with such grace, the husband who never stopped searching. The Bennett name was being reborn, not as a symbol of power and control, but as a beacon of hope and healing. "You know what I missed most during those 15 years?" she asked softly. "Not freedom, not comfort, not even control over my own life. I missed this. Simple moments with the people I love, watching the sun rise, knowing we're exactly where we're meant to be." Alexander wrapped his arms around his family, the morning light warming them all. "No more missing moments," he promised. Below them, the city was waking up. Somewhere out there, other families were beginning their own journeys of discovery and reunion, guided by the light the Bennetts had helped ignite. The storm had passed, leaving behind not just survivors, but warriors for truth and justice. And in that morning light, surrounded by love and purpose, Catherine Bennett finally felt the last shadows of her captivity fade away. She was no longer a prisoner, no longer a victim, no longer a cautionary tale of power unchecked. She was simply herself, mother, wife, protector, healer. Sometimes, she realized, the greatest victory isn't in bringing down an empire, but in building something new from its ruins, something bright, something true, something that shines like a ray of sunshine breaking through the darkest clouds. The Bennett Foundation's new headquarters buzzed with energy as volunteers and staff worked tirelessly to process the flood of cases pouring in from across the country. What had started as one family's fight for justice had blossomed into a movement that was changing lives daily. Sarah Chen, now the Foundation's Director of Investigations, stood before a wall of success stories, photographs of reunited families, each one a testament to the power of truth and persistence. Her own sister's case had finally been solved, thanks to the Foundation's resources and connections. "We've identified 3 more facilities in the Midwest," Carmen reported, joining Sarah at the wall. "The pattern matches what we saw at Evergreen: wealthy families, mysterious disappearances, falsified records." "Send me the details," Sarah replied, her investigative instincts sharp as ever. "I'll have my team look into the ownership structures. There's always a paper trail if you dig deep enough." In her private office, Catherine reviewed the latest draft of her memoir. The publisher had been pushing for more sensational details about her captivity, but she'd insisted on focusing on the healing and transformation that followed. Her story wasn't about victimhood, it was about resilience, hope, and the unbreakable bonds of family. A soft knock at her door revealed Luna, looking professional in her Foundation volunteer uniform. At 17, she'd become an invaluable part of their work, her own experiences on the streets giving her unique insight into helping displaced and struggling families. "The Sullivan case files are ready for review," Luna announced, placing a folder on her mother's desk. "The daughter's drawings remind me of Thomas's, lots of hidden messages and symbols." Catherine smiled, remembering how her son's mysterious drawings had once been dismissed as childish fantasy. Now they were recognized as valuable tools in understanding family connections and uncovering suppressed truths. "Speaking of Thomas," Luna continued, "he's in the children's center again. The kids really respond to him." Down in the Foundation's Children's Center, Thomas sat cross-legged on a colorful rug, surrounded by young people whose families were seeking help. At 15, he'd grown into his gift with grace and purpose, using his natural empathy to help others process their trauma and hope. "Sometimes the dreams tell us things we need to know," he was explaining to a young girl who reminded him of Luna. "They're not just dreams, they're messages from the heart trying to help us find our way home." Alexander, watching from the doorway, felt a surge of pride. His son, once considered too sensitive by Richard's harsh standards, was now helping heal the very kind of wounds his grandfather had inflicted. "Mr. Bennett," a young intern approached with a tablet, "the Senate committee is ready for your video testimony about the Family Protection Act amendments." Alexander nodded, heading to the conference room. The legislation they'd helped create was expanding, strengthening protections for vulnerable families and increasing oversight of private medical facilities. Every small victory helped ensure that what happened to Catherine could never happen again. In the building's rooftop garden, a space designed for quiet reflection and healing, Carmen met with a group of former facility staff who'd chosen to become whistleblowers. Like Julian Whitman, they decided that silence was no longer an option. "Your testimony matters," Carmen assured them, her own experience as an undercover nurse giving weight to her words. "Every truth you share helps expose the system and protect more families." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden as the group shared their stories. Each account added another piece to the puzzle, another thread in the tapestry of truth they were weaving. Back in her office, Catherine received an unexpected call. The secure line meant only one thing. It was from the Federal Detention Center, where Richard awaited trial. "He wants to see you," the administrator explained. "He's been asking for weeks." Catherine's hand tightened on the phone as memories of captivity flickered at the edges of her mind. But she was no longer that helpless prisoner. She was stronger now, supported by love and purpose. "Tell him no," she said firmly. "Tell him to read my memoir when it comes out. That's all he needs to know." As she hung up, Catherine noticed a small package on her desk, a gift from one of the families they'd helped reunite. Inside was a handmade bracelet, woven with bright threads in sunshine. "Yellow?" The note read, "You showed us that even the darkest night can't last forever. Thank you for helping us find our light again." Catherine slipped the bracelet on, its cheerful colors a reminder of how far they'd come. The Bennett name, once synonymous with power and control, was being rewritten, one story, one family, one act of healing at a time. Outside her window, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun. Somewhere out there, other families were still searching, still hoping, still fighting to reconnect. And thanks to the foundation's work, they wouldn't have to fight alone. The evening sunlight streamed through the windows of the Bennett family's restored brownstone, casting warm shadows across the living room where 3 generations now gathered for their weekly family dinner. The formal dining room of the old penthouse had been replaced by this cozy space filled with photographs, children's artwork, and the comfortable chaos of a home well loved. Luna moved through the kitchen with easy confidence, helping Catherine prepare the meal. The years of separation had left their marks, but mother and daughter had developed their own rhythm, finding connection in shared moments and simple tasks. "Did you see the latest interview requests?" Luna asked, chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. "They want to do a documentary about the foundation's 2-year anniversary." Catherine smiled, stirring the soup that had become a family favorite. "What do you think? Are we ready to share our story in that format?" "I think it's time," Thomas called from the living room where he was setting the table. "People need to see that healing is possible, that families can be whole again." The doorbell rang, and Alexander welcomed Sarah and Carmen, no longer just allies in their fight for justice, but cherished extensions of their family. Behind them came Marcus Kelly, the private investigator whose dedication had helped uncover the truth, now the foundation's head of security. "Something smells amazing," Sarah commented, hanging up her coat. Her recent engagement ring caught the light. She'd finally found time for her own happiness amid their ongoing work. As they settled around the table, Catherine looked at the faces gathered there. Each person had played a crucial role in their journey from darkness to light, from broken to whole. Even Julian Whitman, though not present, had become an unexpected ally in their continuing mission to help other families. "I had a call from the prosecutor's office today," Alexander mentioned as they passed the bread. "Father's appeal was denied. The conviction stands." A moment of silence fell over the table. Richard Bennett's trial had made national headlines, exposing decades of corruption and abuse of power. His conviction had set precedents that were still reshaping corporate accountability and patient rights. "Have any of you visited him?" Carmen asked gently. "I did," Thomas said quietly. "Last week. He's different now. Smaller somehow. He asked about everyone, especially Luna and Mom." Catherine reached for her son's hand, amazed at his capacity for compassion. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That we're happy. That we're helping people. That the Bennett name means something good now." Thomas paused. "He cried, I think, just a little." Luna leaned against her mother's shoulder. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if he'd just accepted us? All of us, just as we were?" "Sometimes," Alexander admitted. "But then, we wouldn't be who we are now. We wouldn't be doing this work helping other families, making real change." Sarah raised her glass. "To making change." "To family," Carmen added. "To truth," Marcus contributed. "To love," Catherine finished, looking at her children, the son who'd never stopped believing, the daughter who'd found her way home, the kind that survives anything. After dinner, they gathered in the living room where Thomas's old drawings hung alongside Luna's street art and photographs of families the foundation had helped reunite. The wall had become a testament to their journey, a reminder of how far they'd come. "Mom?" Luna's voice was thoughtful. "Do you remember that first day when Thomas saw me on the street?" "Every detail," Catherine replied softly. "I keep thinking about that moment, how close we came to missing each other. If Thomas hadn't looked up at exactly that second, if you hadn't kept fighting all those years." "But we did find each other," Thomas interjected, "because some connections can't be broken, not by time or distance or even people who try to keep us apart." Catherine gathered her, children close, breathing in the miracle of their presence. The scent of lavender, her signature fragrance now reclaimed from memory, mingled with the lingering aromas of dinner and the subtle perfume of Sarah's flowers on the table. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Somewhere in those streets, other families were finding their way back to each other, guided by the light the Bennetts had helped ignite. The foundation's work continued, growing stronger with each passing day, each reunited family, each truth unveiled. The afternoon faded into evening as stories were shared, memories revisited, and plans made for the future. This was their victory, not just surviving but thriving, not just healing but helping others heal, not just finding their way back to each other, but showing others the way home. In the quiet moments between conversations, Catherine caught Alexander's eye and smiled. They'd rebuilt something beautiful from the ruins of control and fear. The Bennett legacy was no longer measured in property or power, but in lives transformed, families reunited, and love restored. And that, she knew, was the greatest triumph of all. 5 years had passed since that fateful morning when Thomas spotted his sister through a car window. The Bennett Foundation now occupied the entire floor of a renovated historic building in Manhattan, its windows looking out over the same streets where Luna had once sought shelter. Today was special. Catherine stood at the podium in the Foundation's main conference room, facing a crowd of reporters, supporters, and families. The occasion? The official signing of the expanded Bennett Family Protection Act, now strengthened by additional provisions for oversight and accountability. 5 years ago, Catherine began, her voice steady and strong, we made a promise, not just to our own family, but to every family torn apart by abuse of power and privilege. Today, with the signing of these expanded protections, we take another step toward fulfilling that promise. In the front row, Luna and Thomas sat with Alexander, their presence a testament to the journey that had brought them here. At 20, Luna had grown into a poised young woman, her street-smart resilience transformed into passionate advocacy for homeless youth. Thomas, 18 now, had become a respected voice in trauma recovery, his gift for understanding hidden pain helping countless others heal. Sarah Chen, still their strongest media ally, stood nearby with her camera crew, documenting this milestone for her ongoing series about corporate accountability and family justice. Her recent Pulitzer nomination for exposing similar cases across the country had brought even more attention to their cause. The foundation has helped reunite over 300 families, Catherine continued. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Each reunion represents a broken chain of silence, a triumph of truth over power, of love over control. As she spoke, screens behind her displayed photographs of their success stories. A mother embracing her son after 12 years of separation, siblings reunited after decades apart, families healing together in the Foundation's support programs. We've learned that trauma doesn't have to define us. Catherine's gaze met Luna's. That survival can become strength. That the very sensitivity some try to suppress can become our greatest gift for helping others. Thomas smiled, thinking of the children's program he'd developed, teaching young people to trust their intuition and understand their emotional connections. His grandfather had once dismissed such sensitivity as weakness. Now it was recognized as a powerful tool for healing and discovery. Alexander watched his family with quiet pride. The Bennett name had been transformed, not through the corporate power his father had prized, but through the authentic strength that came from vulnerability, truth, and unconditional love. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and celebrated, Carmen approached Catherine with urgent news. "We found another facility," she said quietly. "In Colorado. The pattern matches exactly what you experienced." Catherine's expression remained calm, but her eyes flickered with determination. "Alert Sarah's investigative team, and Carmen. Make sure the children are safe first. Always the children first." Later that evening, in the privacy of their home, the family gathered in what had become their favorite tradition, a quiet dinner together, sharing stories and plans. Luna had just returned from an outreach program she'd started for street youth, while Thomas was preparing to start college, planning to study psychology and continue his work with the Foundation. "I visited him today," Alexander said softly, and they all knew he meant Richard. Their monthly visits had become a kind of ritual, not of reconciliation exactly, but of understanding. Richard Bennett, serving his sentence in a federal facility, had slowly begun to show signs of change, small moments of regret, quiet acknowledgements of the pain he'd caused. "How was he?" Catherine asked, her voice free of the fear that had once accompanied any mention of her father-in-law. "Different," Alexander replied. "He asked about the foundation, actually seemed interested in the work we're doing. And he had something for you, Luna." He handed his daughter a small, worn envelope. Inside was a photograph. Catherine as a young mother, holding baby Thomas, her pregnancy with Luna just beginning to show. On the back, in Richard's precise handwriting, "I was wrong. The real Bennett legacy was always in your heart, not in my control." Luna traced her mother's young, hopeful face in the photograph. "Do you think he really understands now?" "I think," Catherine answered carefully, "that understanding comes in many forms. Your grandfather spent his life believing that power meant control. Perhaps now he's learning that true power lies in letting go, in trusting love to find its own way." Thomas, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Do you remember what you told me that first day, Dad, when I said I saw Luna through the car window?" Alexander nodded. "I told you it was impossible, that you didn't have a sister." "And now look at us," Luna smiled, reaching for her brothers. "And all those impossible things turned out to be true." Catherine looked around at her family, whole, healing, and helping others find their way to the same peace. The old Bennett Empire had crumbled, but from its ruins had grown something far more valuable, a legacy of truth, justice, and unconditional love. Outside their windows, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one perhaps marking another family's journey toward reunion and healing. The work wasn't finished, might never be finished, but that was okay. They had found their way home to each other, and now they could help light the way for others still searching in the dark. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Catherine's office at the Bennett Foundation, casting warm light on the wall of memories she'd created. Photographs, letters, and artwork told the story of their journey, not just their family's healing, but the healing of hundreds of others they'd helped along the way. A knock at her door revealed Luna, excitement bright in her eyes. "Mom, you need to see this." She led Catherine to the Foundation's main hall, where Thomas was working with a group of recently reunited families. The scene before them made Catherine's heart swell, children drawing together, parents sharing, stories, wounds slowly transforming into wisdom. "Remember when we used to think we were alone?" Luna whispered. "That no one would understand?" Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand, remembering those dark days, but the darkness had led them here, to this moment, to this purpose that was bigger than their own pain. Sarah Chen arrived, carrying the advance copy of Catherine's book. "It's beautiful," she said, handing it over. "The publishers say pre-orders are breaking records." Catherine ran her fingers over the cover. Ray of Sunshine, a story of family, truth, and the power of love. The title page bore a simple dedication. "For every family still searching, don't give up, the light always finds a way." Alexander joined them, wrapping an arm around his wife. "The governor just signed the final provisions. Every private facility in the state will now be subject to independent oversight. Other states are following suit." "And Richard?" Catherine asked softly. "His testimony has helped identify 3 more facilities," Alexander replied. "He'll never be free, but he's choosing to help now. It's something." Thomas approached, leading a young girl who reminded Catherine startlingly of Luna at that age. "This is Maya," he introduced. "She has dreams about her brother, just like I used to dream. About Luna." The girl looked up at Catherine with hope and uncertainty mingled in her eyes. "Can't you help me find him?" Catherine knelt to meet Maya's gaze. "Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly what we're here for." Later that evening, the Bennett family gathered in their favorite spot, the Foundation's rooftop garden. The space had been transformed into a haven of healing, with comfortable seating areas, gentle fountains, and walls of climbing roses. Here, families could find peace, share their stories, and begin to rebuild their bonds. "I've been thinking," Luna announced, as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple, "about opening a youth center, a place for kids like I used to be, somewhere safe where they can stay while we help them find their families." "The old Bennett Tower would be perfect," Thomas suggested, "now that it's being converted for non-profit use." Catherine smiled at the poetry of it. The building that had once represented Richard's empire of control, becoming a sanctuary for lost children finding their way home. "There's something else," Alexander added. "The international expansion we've been discussing. The funding just came through. We can start helping families across borders now." Sarah, who had joined them for their evening tradition, raised her glass. "To new beginnings." "To family," Carmen added, her years of dedication to their cause making her as much a part of them as any blood relation. "To every ray of sunshine still waiting to be found," Catherine finished, holding her children close. As the stars began to appear above the city, Catherine reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the darkness of her captivity to this moment of profound purpose, every step, even the painful ones, had led them toward a greater light. The Bennett name would continue to transform, not through power or control, but through love, truth, and the tireless work of helping others find their way back to each other. Their story had become a beacon of hope, proving that even the deepest wounds could heal, that families torn apart could find their way home, that love truly was stronger than any force that tried to contain it. Thomas and Luna sat together, their silhouettes reminding Catherine of all the dreams and drawings that had helped guide them home. Her children had grown into extraordinary young people, turning their own pain into purpose, their sensitivity into strength. In the gentle evening breeze, Catherine could almost hear the echo of her old lullaby, the one she'd sung through years of sedation, the one that had helped her children recognize each other across time and distance. "My ray of sunshine, my ray of sunshine." But now, it wasn't just a song of longing. It was a promise fulfilled, a truth proven, a light that would continue to shine for generations to come. Through the Foundation's work, through their family's example, through every story of healing and reunion, that light would help guide others home. This was their real legacy, not an empire of glass and steel, but a network of healing, hope, and unconditional love that would continue to grow and transform lives long after their own story had become legend. Above them, the first star of evening appeared, bright and steady against the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families to help, new truths to uncover. But tonight, in this moment, surrounded by love and purpose, they were exactly where they were meant to be. They were home. 10 years had passed since the day Thomas spotted Luna through the car window. The Bennett Foundation had grown into an international organization, with offices in 12 countries and a network of support that spanned the globe. But today, they were focused on something more intimate, a celebration of life, love, and the power of never giving up. The Foundation's main hall had been transformed for a special event, the 10th anniversary of Catherine's rescue and the family's reunion. Hundreds of people filled the space, families they'd helped, advocates they'd trained, supporters who'd believed in their mission from the start. Luna, now 25 and the Foundation's youth program director, stood at the podium addressing the crowd. 10 years ago, I was a lost girl on the streets, carrying nothing but a faded ribbon and fragments of memories. Today, I stand before you as proof that love can survive anything, distance, time, even the most determined efforts, to erase it. In the front row, Catherine and Alexander sat with Thomas, now a respected child psychologist, whose work with traumatized families had revolutionized reunion therapy. Beside them, Sarah Chen, now head of the Foundation's Global Investigation Unit, wiped away tears as she filmed the proceedings for her latest documentary. The Bennett name once stood for power and control, Luna continued. Today it stands for something else, hope. Hope for every separated family, every lost child, every parent searching in the dark. We're here to tell you that the light always finds a way home. The screens behind her displayed a montage of their work over the past decade, families reuniting, children finding their way back to parents, siblings recognizing each other across years of separation. Each image told a story of healing, of truth triumphant, of love restored. But our work isn't finished, Luna's voice grew stronger. Every day, we discover new cases, new facilities, new families torn apart by greed and abuse of power. That's why today, we're announcing the launch of the Global Family Reunification Initiative. Catherine stepped forward to join her daughter at the podium. The years had added silver to her hair, but had only strengthened the determination in her eyes. This initiative will extend our reach to every corner of the world. No border, no corporation, no power structure will stop us from helping families find their way back to each other. As she spoke, Thomas operated the presentation, showing maps of their planned expansion, statistics of families already helped, and projections for the future. But it was the personal stories that moved the audience most. Testimonials from families who'd found each other through the Foundation's work. Alexander watched his family with quiet pride. The Bennett legacy had been completely transformed, becoming something his father could never have imagined. A force for healing, for justice, for unconditional love. Later that evening, in a quieter moment, the family gathered in Catherine's office. The space had become a sanctuary of memories, its walls covered with photographs, letters, and artwork from families they'd helped. "Do you ever think about him?" Thomas asked softly. They all knew he meant Richard. Catherine touched a frame, containing the last photograph Richard had sent them before his passing 2 years ago. In it, he sat in the prison library, surrounded by case files he was reviewing to help identify more separated families. His final acts had been attempts at redemption, helping expose the very system he'd once controlled. "He found his way to the light," she answered. "In his own time, in his own way." Luna's phone buzzed with news from their European office. Another family had been reunited in Berlin. This was their life now. Constant movement, constant progress, constant reminders of why their work mattered. Sometimes, I wonder, Luna mused, about that day in the car. What if Thomas hadn't looked up at that exact moment? What if Dad hadn't stopped to listen? "That's why we do this work," Thomas replied, "to make sure other families don't have to rely on chance, moments, to create systems that actively help people find each other." The setting sun painted the office in shades of gold, reminding Catherine of another sunset long ago when she'd first whispered her daughter's nickname through a haze of forced sedation. "My ray of sunshine." Now that Ray had become a beacon lighting the way for countless others. The Bennett Foundation wasn't just an organization, it was a movement, a revolution of love and truth against the forces of control and separation. As evening settled over the city, the family stood together at the window, watching the lights come on across Manhattan. Each light seemed to represent another family's story, another chance for reunion, another opportunity to prove that love could overcome any obstacle. 10 years, Catherine whispered, holding her children close. "And we're just getting started." The city sparkled before them, full of promise and possibility. Their work would continue, their light would spread, and their story would keep inspiring others to never give up, to keep searching, to believe in the unbreakable bonds of family love. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Bennett Foundation's new global headquarters, casting warm light across the wall of hope. A massive digital display showing real-time updates of ongoing reunification cases around the world. Catherine stood before it, watching as new points of light appeared, each representing another. Family beginning their journey home. "Mom?" Luna's voice drew her attention. "It's time." Today marked another milestone, the inaugural ceremony of the Catherine Bennett Institute for Family Justice, a training center dedicated to preparing the next generation of advocates, investigators, and healers. The auditorium was filled with students from around the world, each committed to carrying the Foundation's mission forward. Thomas, now an internationally recognized expert in trauma recovery and family reunification, took the stage first. 10. Years ago, our family discovered something powerful, that love leaves traces that no force can erase. Today, we're teaching others how to follow those traces, how to help families find their way back to each other. The audience listened intently as he explained the Institute's groundbreaking methods, combining traditional investigation techniques with emotional intelligence, trauma-informed care, and the latest in global data analysis. Sarah Chen, who had helped design the investigative curriculum, joined him on stage. "Every family story matters," she declared. "Every separation deserves attention. Every reunion brings us closer to a world where no one has to search alone." Luna stepped forward next, her presence commanding, yet gentle. The street-smart girl had grown into a powerful advocate, her own experience informing her work with displaced youth worldwide. "We're not just teaching techniques," she explained. "We're building a global network of light, people dedicated to breaking down the barriers that keep families apart." Alexander watched from the sidelines, marveling at how far they'd come. The Bennett name, once synonymous with corporate power, had become a beacon of hope, a symbol of transformation and healing. Catherine took the stage last, her silver hair shining in the spotlight. "Every story of separation contains within it the seeds of reunion," she began. "Every broken bond holds the possibility of healing. This institute exists to nurture those possibilities, to train people who will carry this work forward for generations to come." The screens behind her displayed images from their decade of work, families embracing after years apart, children finding their way home, communities healing together. But it was the live feed that drew everyone's attention, real-time reunions, happening across the globe, proof that their methods worked, that their mission was succeeding. "The work we do here," Catherine continued, "is about more than finding lost family members. It's about healing the wounds that separation creates. It's about transforming pain into purpose, fear into courage, isolation into connection." As she spoke, new notifications appeared on the wall of hope. More cases solved, more families reunited, more light spreading across the world. The Bennett Foundation's network now spanned every continent, its methods being taught in universities, its protocols adopted by governments and organizations worldwide. 10 years ago, Catherine's voice softened with memory, I was a prisoner of silence and control. Today we stand together as architects of reunion, builders of bridges, keepers of hope. The light that helped our family find its way home now shines for everyone. The ceremony concluded with a surprise announcement: the establishment of the Ray of Sunshine Scholarship, providing full funding for students dedicated to family justice work. The name was more than a tribute to Luna's story. It was a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, light finds a way to break through. Later. That evening, the Bennett family gathered in their favorite spot, the Institute's rooftop garden. The city spread before them, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. Luna and Thomas sat with their parents, sharing stories and plans for the future. "Do you remember the ribbon?" Luna asked, touching the preserved original now displayed in the Institute's museum. "How something so small could carry so much meaning." Like Thomas's drawings, Catherine smiled. "Sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest truths." Alexander wrapped his arm around his wife, remembering the long journey that had brought them here. "We've created something beautiful from the darkness," he said softly. "No," Catherine corrected him gently. "We've helped reveal the light that was always there, in every family's love, in every heart's hope, in every soul's yearning to find its way home." As night fell over the city, the wall of hope continued to pulse with new life, new stories, new beginnings. The Bennett Foundation's work would go on, carried forward by trained hearts and hands, spreading hope and healing across the globe. This was their true legacy, not an empire of control, but a network of light. Not a story of power, but a testament to love's ability to overcome every obstacle, bridge every distance, heal every wound. In the growing darkness, Catherine looked at her family. The son who had seen truth through the shadows, the daughter who had survived to bring hope to others, the husband who had never stopped searching, and the extended family of advocates and allies they'd gathered along the way. Together, they had transformed a tale of separation into a symphony of reunion, a story of control into a celebration of freedom, a legacy of power into a beacon of love. And somewhere out there, in the great tapestry of human